I think we're live.
No, maybe.
It says waiting for glass orchid. Let's see what it says. Pretty sure we're live. Go back into it. I know that sometimes there's a delay.
But sorry for the delay. The greatest rock and roll band, the Rolling Stones.
There we go. We're live. The greatest rock and roll band in the world, the Rolling Stones.
The Rolling Stones.
All right, let me. What is going on here with the screen? Should we get full screen? Full screen. Here we are.
Full screen. Full screen ahead, Daddy.
Craig says, "What's up, guys?" Craig,
what it is, Craig?
Trying to figure out how to fix the screen here. We're kind of like off to the side.
Oh boy, now it's really messed up.
Do you see that? Whoa. Yeah.
I'm following you live. Following us live.
Well, how do we fix this? Let's see. Probably something in here. Oh, here we go. This is our problem. There we are. There's that. And where is the chat? Chat.
Oh boy.
This is the command center right here, if you didn't know that. I'm just not going to click around on anything because I don't want to like ruin our thing here because we're going. So Craig, what's up? How are you? Good to see you, Craig. Happy Wednesday to you. All right, let me just make sure this. Okay, screen looks good. Steven, how are you?
I'm good. How's things going?
It has been a crazy day, but here we are. I know that this was... Go ahead.
It's crazy because you've been anticipating the show.
I'll tell you, the second half of my day was pretty good after we're like, let's do it. We're doing a show. So thank you.
Good. All right.
As I burp into the microphone. We just got one person on, so we'll give it a minute or so here just to see if anybody else joins.
Well, that'll just make it, that much more inclusive. So got one person. You tell us what you want us to talk about.
What do you want us to talk about? Based on the YouTube analytics, most people stop watching the videos after 30 seconds, just in case you knew that.
So if you're giving us 45, thank you.
There you go.
Or even a full minute at 60. Thank you.
Sorry we don't get the chat. I don't know what I had to do to get that chat going. Not sure why that it's not showing up here. Craig says he's ready to talk the Velvets. Me too, Craig.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to it. Let's do it.
Let's see. Chat. Is there anything on here that will tell us about the chat?
Craig, can you jump in the chat and say something? So
he's in there.
Maybe
yeah, he's talking.
Okay, so he's there. Okay,
he's there.
Oh yeah, obviously because you're reading it. Yeah, I knew that.
I don't know what happened to our actual chat thing, but that's okay. So normally we have the chat in the middle. That worked pretty good last time, but
it did.
We'll just have to look at the phone and do that. So, but yeah, okay, let's get going. So Steve, here we are. It's Wednesday. Let's do this.
All right.
Show and tell. What has been on your? I know it was Thanksgiving, right? And I know that.
Yes.
I know that you had mentioned that after the last show, after that marathon of a show we did,
yes,
I didn't have any beverages for it. Got 2 beverages for this one.
My man, I don't know how you did that. You're a champ.
I didn't want to listen to the Birds at all, and you were telling me about you heard them on Sirius, and you were like, I'm not gonna listen to this. I'm done with it. So, what were you listening to that wasn't the Birds last week?
Last week, and I listened to it again today just because it's so good. And that's Elvis Costello's "Blood and Chocolate."
Okay,
this is kind of. Are you familiar with this record?
I am. Yeah,
that's. Give me your thoughts. I'd love to hear it.
So every Elvis Costello album is a little bit different, I feel, which
Hmm.
is nice. So he is an artist that um, that evolves musically. I think Blood and Chocolate's a little bit more of a darker album. Would you say
Yeah,
so?
absolutely.
So it's kind of nice because a lot of his songs are sort of like the upbeat, jump around kind of ones. I can't remember offhand some of the tracks that are on there, so you'll have to help me out with that. Um, but what's the jammer on there? What's
I
the big
mean,
one?
Tokyo Storm Warning is really good. Uncomplicated kicks it off. Next time around, speaking of the Birds, I've kind of very Birds-ish vibe to it. Maybe a
Right.
little sprinkle of the Beatles. Blue Chair, Battered Old Bird are really good. It's just a great record. I think My Aim Is True is probably my favorite. I think you and I have talked offline before, and you've
Yep.
told me that is this year's model your favorite?
I'd say just basically on most influential sort of. I mean, that album. My cousin introduced it to me when I was
Mm-hmm.
very very young, and I picked up never mind the Bullocks, and it was kind of like this is I want to listen to this music more, and he's like, you got to listen to Elvis Costello, and I was like, okay. I have no reference. I mean, I knew Allison, and I knew probably Radio, I would say. Does he have a bigger hit? Like, is there a bigger like?
Then those two songs,
Yeah.
I can't think of any.
See, Allison is shopping music, so that's.
That's one of the greatest songs ever written. Though. That's that. No, I'm serious.
Right,
That's like top 10 for me personally.
right.
That's a beautiful song. It's a good version of Wonderful Tonight.
Okay, all right. And I gotcha. And he he put that CD in my hand, was like, you should listen to this, and like I mean, it was one of those times when you have maybe I probably had at that time maybe 20 CDs in my collection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like every single CD. That's like even like I had a couple classical CDs, things like that. Like it's every single CD that I owned at that time. So yeah, very influential. So I like that. I like Armed Forces, Get Happy.
Those are all great. Yeah, they're Almost Blue is country covers record.
Yep,
That's a good one.
that's
I
really
mean,
good. King of America,
he's
another good one.
yeah, King of America is great. And what is that? Gosh, Imperial Bedroom.
Yep.
That's a great record. Kind of after King of America, that's kind of where it kind of drops for me for a little
Right,
bit.
like
And
Spike
I would
and things
imagine,
like that.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of Spike. Like I don't even really like Victoria that much,
Yeah,
or Veronica.
Veronica.
Excuse me, not
Yep.
Veronica. But yeah, Blood and Chocolate. I think Miami is True is still my favorite, but Blood and Chocolate is certainly, who knows, it may be my favorite after all. But it's a great record. Yeah, I actually got into, believe it or not, I got into Elvis Costello, a high school teacher. She actually got me into them. So we got to talk in music, and she was like, "Oh, well, you like the Ramones and stuff like that. You like Elvis Costello." So kind of the same thing with the Sex Pistols with you.
It's a very interesting time in music, and folks that are the true Generation Xers that are like those folks that were born in like I don't know what, like from 69 to like 78, something like that, though, that group of people that were really like bands like U2 were like the band, right? Like they were like really into like Mellencamp and Springsteen, and you know what I mean? Like it's very
Yeah,
strange like when you meet somebody
yeah.
like that, and it's like their taste in music is like very specific. Like it's not classic rock. Like that stuff was all like so passé. But
Dinosaur music at that point.
but then like sort of like the grunge era is like a little like, yeah, I like Stone Temple Pilots, or yeah, I like Smashing Pumpkins or Pearl Jam. I'm a fan of Pearl Jam. But like that's like sort of where it ends. So
Yeah.
Craig says this year's model is a top album here. Pump It Up is my jam.
Yeah,
That
for
is,
sure.
it's a good one. It's a good one. Um,
I like what's on gosh, what's on the Upbeat. That's the Beat. That's
yep.
great. That whole album's got good stuff. Lipstick Vogue. Yeah, Craig's right. Dude, that's a
Yeah.
jammer.
It's one of those like I can't describe like how good of an album it is, and I think that it's kind of funny because like I really really play that album a lot, and Sam is just like I can't listen to it. Like I think it's the organ that does it for her that really dates that album, but she's just like I can't get into this. Like I just can't. understand what the appeal is, and it's just like I can't describe it. Like it's not something I can just say like it's this, you know.
I think Elvis Costello is one of those very divisive artists. You either really like him or you don't like him. Like
Oh yeah.
I've never met a casual Elvis Costello fan. You know what I mean? It's like you're like, yeah, I dig him, or it's like, yeah, it's not for me.
So quick story for you. So this would have probably been maybe 2004, I want to say, maybe around that time. Bob Dylan came to Pittsburgh. He played the Peterson Event Center, which is where Pitt basketball plays at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily like it's not a huge arena, but it's not like, it's not a theater that has good acoustics.
Bob's Bar.
Right. um, so you had Bob Dylan, and you had Elvis Costello, and you had Amos Lee. And I don't know if are you familiar
On the same
with Amos
bill.
Lee? You familiar?
Yeah,
familiar
yeah. He's a hometown guy, man. He's
Okay.
from right here.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. You said he used to come into the record store.
He
right?
used to work at Papa Jess. Yeah,
Okay,
he used to work at Papa Jess
Okay.
A while. Yeah, and he stumbles in there every now and then. And yeah, I've never seen him in there or anything, but I've heard he's just a super down to earth,
Are you familiar
very
with
humble
any of
guy.
his stuff?
Not right offhand. He's kind of one of those artists I know of him more
Okay.
than I know his music, so
Okay.
I won't pretend.
Okay, well, I'll kind of get you straight on one of his. I guess it's like his major label debut.
Is that the one where he's like bending over, looking at not bending over, but he's like looking down at somebody's got like the fedora on?
Yeah, it's like a black and white cover, sort of.
Yeah.
I think he kind of has his head cocked to the side, and he's like,
when I worked at the record store, we sold that pretty regularly, just because on the fact that he's a hometown guy.
It's a great record. It's from a singer songwriter standpoint. Anyhow, so that we have that. Amos Lee comes on, does his thing. It was great. He played the hits, right? Everything on that album, all the best songs on that album, he played. Elvis Costello comes out, right? It's just Elvis and an acoustic guitar.
Oh wow!
And it was like he like furiously ran up to the mic and was just like almost like a punk like rhythm. And he starts playing "Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes," and
wow.
I just like the hair on my arm stood up, and it was just fantastic. And that was probably one of the better better shows of Bob Dylan that I saw. Like I saw some that weren't really that good, but Bob came out and he played guitar. Like I'd seen shows where Bob just played piano, like he just sat at the piano.
Oh wow!
And just did that. This one he had an intermission and he came back, and I'm like he's not gonna be playing guitar. And then like some guy in the bathroom was like, he'll be playing guitar tonight. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say, buddy. And sure enough, like he's playing guitar. So that was pretty cool. But
very nice.
That was a great moment with only time I've ever seen Elvis Costello, but it was a great show. So we'll have to look at that set list later and kind of dig through what he played. But it was fantastic. It was amazing.
Well, the cool thing about the tour for this record is, the wheel where he would have the songs up there, he would just spin it, and whatever it landed on, they would launch into, which is cool. How
right.
fun is that?
Right.
So I thought that was really neat.
Spin the wheel, make the deal. Texas Death Match, play that one.
Well, speaking of Texas, here's a band from Texas, Blood Rock.
Okay, all right.
Blood
I do
Rock
not have
Live.
that one. I do not.
I listened. I listened to this today. I think these guys, they've got some cool album covers. They've got some really cool album covers. They're best known for, of course, DOA, which I think is a terrible song.
Yeah,
like it's
such a downer.
Well, not only that, but it's just boring. It just doesn't. Again, it's like you're trying to be spooky, but it's just coming off as kind of hokey. So these guys, this is a good live record. It's not great, it's good, but that kind of sums up Blood Rock, I think, as a whole. Is they're good. They're not
right.
I wouldn't trip over anybody rushing to the bin to snag one of their records, but I think that they're a band that's missing something. I know Terry Knight, who of course famously managed and screwed over Grand Funk Railroad.
Right.
I know he managed them as well, and there are some elements there, like you hear that organ, like they're very much like a Deep Purple, kind of like a Deep Purple Grand Funk ish kind of a band. But there's just something missing to that. But that live record, if you're gonna get one, I would say that's probably the one to get, just because most bands live, at least at that time, that live record. That's kind of before live records meant something, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So it's almost like they're going out there and they're just playing to play, and that kind of really translates. But again, there's always something missing with Blood Rock.
Well, I think I think being on the Capitol label, first off, like Capitol didn't really have, like, they had the band, right? So the band was on Capitol. They had Beatles. They had the Beach Boys. Um, but like I can't really think of a band. They had Steve Miller Band, but
Well, Grand Funk too. They were on
Grand
Capitol.
Funk was on that, right? But I mean,
They were huge.
but they just really didn't have like, I don't know, like I don't feel like they have like an anchor. Like to me, like Blood Rock, like kind of wanted to be like Black Sabbath, right? Like it's like they just the way that they're like a sludgy rock kind of, like you get that vibe. Like they were too
Yeah.
heavy for their own good, right? Like it's like they needed to have like a hit other than DOA. Right?
Well, yeah, but there's just, and I can't really put my finger on it, but there's just something missing with them. Like they're a band that just they're just kind of there, they're just kind of background music, like something that, like, if you're cruising in a car, to kind of put around just to fill the space in the background. And I know that sounds like a slight, and I'm really not. But what you got there?
I just want to see if they're in this book. Because I just want to see singles and what have you. This is before we had the internet, Steve. We had books like this, right?
Well, and they have a cool song on here called Jessica that predates, of course, the you're wearing them on your shirt, predates the Allman Brothers. But again, they're a band that just, I don't think, ever really hammered things out. They never really got that defining moment in their career.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why their albums are not ones that, like you said, people aren't busting down the doors to get the record store day exclusive of Blood Rock 2, right? Like it just doesn't happen.
No, not at all. And before we jump into the vets, because I'll show you the couple of vets records that I've been listening to. Talked about
one sec.
Yes.
Craig says, I have so much Blood Rock, but I hardly listen to them. Been a long time. Might need to pull them off the shelf. I think, Steve, I will do the same. I believe I have Blood Rock 3. Is that the one that's like the kind of the Star Spangled white cover? That's that one, right?
Well, that's Blood Rock USA. I think that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think it's Blood Rock.
Yeah, you're
3.
right. Yeah,
okay.
you Blood Rock 3. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then there was the one that's like the finger with the gun, or it's like the gun.
That's Blood Rock USA. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that looks like something off a Yellow Submarine.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. They're again, if Craig, if you've got the live record, dust that one off, and I mean, it's not wasting time, but it's. I think that one comes off better than their studio stuff.
Yeah.
So
just want to say hello to anybody watching. I see that we got a couple more people jumped on the stream. Good evening.
Hello.
If you want to say hey, we're going to try to talk about the Velvet Underground a little bit tonight. But of course, whatever the direction that we go is the direction that we go. So Dixieland Farm said I gave her all my money. She wouldn't even talk to me. I'm not sure I understand what that reference is. Is that a Blood Rock reference? I'm assuming
that maybe I can't, I'm not the biggest Blood Rock fan, so yeah. maybe that is.
Chris, hello. Good evening.
So we were talking about compilations a couple of weeks ago, and this is kind of one through. This is going to shock you, through me alphabetizing my record collection. Don't worry. I got to like the mid A's, and I was like, don't worry, I stopped halfway, so I got a reputation to live up to. So this one is not going to show up. There, Rock's greatest hits.
I like that.
Are you familiar with this?
No, I like that cover. Looks pretty good though.
It does. I mean, look at it. It looks like they're kind of jamming out at a house party.
Yeah.
Maybe some funny business going on. But let's get on the track listing, okay?
Okay.
Side 1, record 1, because this is a 3-record set.
So before you go any further, right?
Okay.
What label is it on? Can you tell me that?
A Columbia Musical Treasury.
Okay, so Columbia Music. So this is probably going to be a lot of Warner Brothers. Okay. Yeah, this will be a lot of Warner Brothers and yes, and then obviously a lot of Columbia artists, right? So that's what I'm assuming.
Yes.
So we're going to see a lot of Go ahead.
It's got a copyright date of 72 and 76. I presume that this is a repress of the earlier release. because there's not really any songs that are after 72 on this that I look. Shall I just go and pick out songs, or you just want me to run through the track list? Let me just run through the track list.
Let's hear it.
All right, record one, side one, Johnny Nash. I can see clearly now.
Okay.
Now, when you look at these guys, this dude's got a denim jacket on with no shirt underneath. He's probably,
looks like
been fooling around
Gibson
with
SG there, right?
Yeah,
no,
probably looks like he's
Fender Jazzmaster.
Been like fooling around with the devil's lettuce, and
right.
He's, what says hard rock more than Johnny Nash, right? I can see clear now.
Yep.
You're like, yeah, this is good stuff. Steppenwolf, nah, we're not gonna. So, all right, then we jump into sort of a rocking song, "Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress" by the Hollies.
It's an epic record. So basically, the poor man's Columbia Records, right?
But then we jump back into Loggins and Messina with "House at Pooh Corner." Are you familiar with "House at Pooh Corner"?
I am familiar with that.
Okay, I don't think I'd want to go to that house.
Not exactly rock's greatest hits.
Well, how do you with I can see clearly now. I mean, what are you going to kick out the jams after that? Of course not. That's put Loggins and Messina. That rocks. Your mama don't dance. Nope. Let's do "House at Pooh Corner." So, all right. Then we finally start to rock with "Oye Como Va" by Santana.
Okay.
Then we do a song that is great, but I wouldn't say it rocks. We got "You've Made Me So Very Happy" by Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
That's, okay.
That's a great record. We've talked about that before.
We got, 4 or 5 songs before we got a Blood, Sweat, and Tears one? That's pretty... I kind of figured that was going to happen.
All right, then we flip it over. Side 2. Kick it off with Janis Joplin, me, and Bobby McGee.
Okay.
Then we got another great song, Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, the cover of the Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Lauren Nero, Wedding Bell Blues.
Okay, that was the hit. So,
but just
no.
What do you think this has on? There's no track listing on the back either, so I just assume
that's what that is.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly. And then we kind of have one that may be the oddest one in this whole bunch. Scott McKenzie, San Francisco. Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.
Okay.
So, and then we've got David Bromberg is Sharon.
That's weird. That's a weird inclusion. I think
you want to do site.
Yeah, well, I think Garcia played on a handful of David Bromberg's albums. I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
Again, I'm not too familiar with his... I have a few of his albums, but I'm not really...
I've got 2, I think. The 2 that everybody has.
Okay. It's like the black and white cover of him, like real close.
Yeah.
And then
the Connect the Dots one.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Those are the ones I've got. All right. So, record 2. We've got The Looking Glass with Brandy, which is a great song.
Epic. I mean, that's
Redbone.
Right? Another epic.
Redbone,
another epic
The Witch Queen of New Orleans, which their first record is a double album. Now, Redbone's first record is awesome. It really is. It's a cool record. It's a double album. It's very ambitious. If Bob Dylan had it done 5 years before. All right. So then we go with the Hollies again with "He Ain't Heavy." He's my brother.
There you go.
Then we go with Argent with "Liar."
Okay.
Then we go with "Thunder and Lightning" by Coltrane.
Wow.
Yeah. Or Chai Coltrane.
Okay.
I'm not sure who Chai Coltrane is. All right. So then for record 2, side 2, Mark, are you ready? Are you pumped?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Mac Davis, "Baby, Don't Get Hooked on Me." Then we actually do rock with Heart Full of Soul by the Yardbirds.
I mean, so that's like, okay. So here's what's confusing. Who
sequenced this?
Most of this is like stuff from either 68, 69, or 70. I mean, is that a live version? Did you listen to it? Was it the live one?
I don't know if it's a live one. I listened to all of record 3. So, so then we've got "Them Changes" by Santana and Buddy Miles.
Okay.
Sly and the Family Stone. Thank you for letting me be myself. And then Mark Lindsay with "Silverbird."
So that was like 1970.
Yes. Well, it's got 72 is when this originally came out.
Craig says, "Who is the marketing genius behind this comp? Columbia Records.
Yeah,
It's called
just
a loss leader.
Yeah, whatever's laying around, we're gonna toss on here. All right, last record. All right, record 3, side 1. Hold Your Head Up by Argent.
Okay.
And we've got again,
Like that's probably the
Season by the
heaviest. That's like
Zombies.
the heaviest song that we've heard. Oh, and then
It's
it goes
probably the
Zombies,
most-
and then the
Yeah,
Zombies.
Zombies. Yeah, Time of the Season.
So you basically play a song by a guy that was in the Zombies, and then you play the Zombies, the best song from the Zombies, right? Or the single. That's interesting. That's like playing Buffalo Springfield and then like, and here's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You know, like it's
Or here,
it's like,
or
what are you doing? What are you doing?
all right, in this one we've got. Hopefully I'm going to pronounce this right. The Adarisi brothers. We've got to get it on again.
Okay. Yeah, Dreesy
I'm not
Brothers.
familiar.
Yep.
Yeah,
That was
we've got. Here's one of your favorites. Mott and the Hoople, All the Young Dudes.
All the Young Dudes. That's a great one.
And then we've closed it with the awful, in my opinion, Delaney and Bonnie with Only You Know and I Know.
You know, so again, this is where we're gonna have to disagree here. Delaney and Bonnie is one of my favorite bands. So
All right, so we got. I'm just kidding.
no, I mean, you know, and again, I can enlighten you on them. They're definitely, especially Motel Shot. That's an amazing album. Motel Shot is really good. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's, you know, like Dwayne Wallman's on it, Graham Parsons is on it, Leon Russell's on it.
And with all that talent, they still couldn't.
Actually, I think that's the song that's from. I think that's from.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Either I think it's that album. I don't know. They all kind of blur together for me.
I'll give it a shot. Another shot. All right, side 2. Now this is the best side, and I'm not being facetious. Legitimately, this is the best side.
Record 3, side 2 is the best side.
This is the side that you're going to spin.
Okay.
Another
Miles Davis, Inamorata, Olive side 2. Just kidding.
All right. Pacific Gas and Electric, Are You Ready? Which is an incredible band. Band.
Yeah, but they're like Blood Rock. They're good, but not.
No, they're good. That's the difference between them and Blood Rock.
Yeah.
Is Pacific.
Okay.
They're good.
Right.
Hey, different strokes, different folks. Yeah. You know, you listen to your Delaney and Bonnie, and I'll listen. Yeah. All right. Then we got Santana, Evil Ways.
So they were really milking the Carlos Santana there for three different sides there. So
and here it just gets better.
Okay.
Paul Revere and the Raiders, Indian Reservation.
I mean, yeah, but that song is, I don't know. Go ahead.
Donovan, Hurdy Gurdy Man.
Okay.
Best song on the record.
668. There's 1968 again.
Well, and let's go back even further for this last one. We talked about him last week. The Byrds. Guess what song?
Ooh. Jesus Is Just All Right.
Turn, Turn, Turn.
What?
So.
What the heck?
But this is the record. So it is Rock's Greatest Hits. I paid a whopping $1 for it. When it's got the date code on it. Back in November of 2014. So.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting comp. That's
odd.
Very strange.
I'm a fan of comps, and that is one of the oddest sequenced comps that I own, and maybe I've ever seen. Just really, really odd, and yeah, that's about the best way. It's good. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just different.
Well, there you go. It's those loss leaders are always fun to pick up because they're really. I find
they're always dirt cheap.
Well, the Warner Brothers ones, I like those because it's really like they put them out so often. It was just really like this is what's going on right at this very time. Have you ever seen The Big Ball? Have you ever seen that one? That has like Zappa and Hendrix,
yes,
like that.
Yes,
that one's
that
one's fantastic.
Know, but
I'll have to bust it out. It's all like the underground, Warner Brothers underground stuff. There's like Wildman Fisher and stuff like that on it.
Just like that Zapped record. You have that.
Yeah, I do. Yep. I don't listen to it that much, but I have it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same thing. So, all right. Well, before we jump into the vets, which I'll show you the couple of vets that I've been talking about, you
I got some
Please, you
stuff to
go
show you
first.
too. Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm building up to that. I'm your
Before we get,
MC. I'm
I gotcha.
announcing you.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I just want to read a couple of things on the chat here.
Please.
Chris said that he has been within 5 feet of the 3 of the VU members at various points. That's cool, Chris.
Wow.
I know that the Velvets are a big Chris. They're one of your favorite bands. So we're not gonna do like a super deep dive like we did with the Birds, but
No,
I
not tonight.
figure we just talk and show some stuff. So that fun stuff. Yeah. Okay. So, and hey to anybody else that's joined. I see there's a handful of folks in the chat. So, hello and welcome. Good evening.
Hello, hello.
So, little show and tell that I wanted to do. So, really, just two things, and I've been listening to comps too. There's the new grapefruit that came out that's called Box of
Yes.
Pinups.
Yes.
The British Sounds of 1965. So they do a lot of those, those single year compilations. Steve, I know you listened to this a little bit too. You were listening streaming. I of course I'm the fan of these. I mean, I have a pretty big row of these on my shelves that I've been going through. But I think what's really cool about this is like 1965 is like this is all sort of like before it all happened, right? So it's like
Right.
it's really interesting because these are like the bands that were sort of like I think of like the song Mercy Mercy, which is on here. Somebody covers that as well too. But that like those first like 3 or 4 Rolling Stones albums, like the self-titled and well England's Newest Hitmakers, 12 by 5, December's Children, Out of Our Heads. Like I think of all those. Like Out of Our Heads might actually be a little bit. That's a little bit later. I think that's 66, right?
No, that's 65. I
That's
think.
65. Okay, it's either
Yeah.
65 or 66. But
Yeah.
it's really cool because it's like just like the pictures on here. Like it's like I feel it's like very everything was very black and white at that time, right? So a lot of these this was before everything got Technicolor and in color. Um, but there's a lot of the bands on here that are sort of like the British R&B kind of things. There's one that really stuck out for me was the Manfred Mann because I think everybody like thinks about Manfred Mann and they think about I know everyone
Blinded by the light or
well
do what diddy or
Do
something
What
like
Diddy I
that.
think is you think
Yeah.
of early Manfred Mann, but the one that was on here was pretty fantastic. I wish I oh here it is. It's called Tired of Trying, Bored of Lying, and Scared of Dying. That one was like you know I
You
thought I
know,
sent that to you and I thought that was a pretty cool track.
it's an amazing song. You know, people always argue about the origins of punk rock and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Now, without looking at a timeline or something like that, you know, I know the creation making time would probably have to go in there too, but that one deserves right there to be on that list as well. The subject matter, the lyric matter,
Yep.
the what do you want to call it? The nihilism that's behind it. You know, that's got all the earmarks of early punk rock.
And I think the only reason why that like something like that isn't on here is that they were more kind of like they consider them like freak beat is where they kind of put them where it's like that's sort of where you started getting like bands like Tomorrow
Yeah.
which those guys went on and did I think Yes I think is what some of the
Yes.
guys were in um but sort of like
Yeah, I
more
think
so
Steve
on
Howe was in there.
yeah like sort of the the kind of the Yardbirds kind of era. So was really enjoying this. Like it was fun listening to this and just kind of like it is a a pretty cool timepiece as far as with it's not necessarily like everything like you could tell all the guitars are just like plugged right into the amps. Like this is before pedals. This is before, you know what I mean? Like it's just like even before the Kinks kind of came around and like and sort of had that like sort of the semi feedback distorted tones. Like this is all before that. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. So a lot of things that I had heard before, like some of the stuff from the Pretty Things. Of course, Tell Her No by the Zombies is on here. So this is my favorite thing about the Grapefruit compilations is they'll have those like little chestnuts that are like, okay, here are like there's like something like 92 songs on here, right? So because they're all like 2-minute pop songs. That's the other thing that's awesome about it. But you have like those little songs that are like, oh, I'm gonna like the Pretty Things Midnight to 6 Man. Like you've heard that I don't know, probably hundreds of thousands of times.
Right.
At least I have. And then you have Donovan, Hey Gyp, dig the slowness, right? You have those kind of things, and then like they kind of like anchor you between like, you just let it play, and you hear like, oh, here's that song, and then like then there's like a couple songs you don't really know, and then they're like, oh, well, that's interesting, and then you hear another song like you really know. That's my favorite thing about that. These are put together really well. So, Grapefruit. So they have another one that's coming out on Friday that is all it's the Brummy. I think I told you about this, like the Manchester sort of
Oh,
rock
right,
stuff.
right.
So that's coming out. So that'll be like the Move and Black Sabbath and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. So I'll show that one next week.
Very cool.
And the other thing I've been listening to, so yet another comp. This one is called "Taking Some Time On." So that's a Barclay James Harvest song. This is Esoteric, so under the Cherry Red umbrella. Are you familiar with Cherry Red Record?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have these different offshoot labels. Esoteric is usually like sort of like progressive rock and things like that. Grapefruit's more sort of like the psychedelic kind of side of it. But this is all. There's not too many tracks on this. There's I think 50 something, 52. But there's some like Atomic Roosters on here, Deep Purple.
What Atomic Rooster tune?
It is
Death Walks Behind You.
No, Winter. They've actually there's like two I think on here. Didn't really do my homework.
Oh no, it's okay.
Yeah, but yeah, so like I think maybe just one. Okay, but you have. Let me just go through some of the tracks. So taking some time on Barclay James Harvest, that first album, which you can see they put a picture of it, the cover right there. The Green Mamalishi with the two-prong crown by Fleetwood Mac, like that sort of tune.
Yeah. I know the Judas Priest cover.
Right. So the original version is the Fleetwood Mac one, right? This is before Lindsey Buckingham joined the group. Hawkwind, Hurry on Sundown, which is
nice.
That's like I think I have probably like 10 different comps that have that on there. Yeah. There's Gentle Giant, Jethro Tull, Bloodwind Pig, Al Stewart is on here. Kevin Ayers with Sing in a Song in the Morning. You know that one? That's a
well, yeah. Is that off
The
Joy of a Toy?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Traffic, Empty Pages, which is off of John Barleycorn Must Die, which I've been really getting into that album. I've been really listening to that quite a bit.
Oh, that's really? Yeah. That's that and On the Road are kind of my go-to for them.
Okay. Pretty Things are on here. Procol Harum. Yes is on here. No Opportunity Necessary. No Experience Needed. You familiar with that one? That's 1970.
I am. Yeah.
So this is all stuff from 1970. So it's very specific.
I'm a big Yes fan, at least in the 70s. So yeah, that was off their second record.
Phoenix by Wishbone Ash, which I think is sort of their.
That's great.
Like,
that's
like
it's like that ends the first record. That's kind of like their epic.
And then we have Love Sculpture in the Land of a Few. Love Sculpture. So that's Chris Dixieland Farm will be he's gonna be angry at you for not knowing that one. That's all like Dave Edmunds, like Rockpile and
wow, okay,
like all those
Nick
guys.
Lowe and all that.
I don't think Nick. Chris, you have to help us out. Was Nick Lowe in Love Sculpture? I don't think he was. He was in.
I mean, if Dave Edmunds was attached to it, I think it's safe to bet that Nick Lowe was probably at least producing or playing bass.
Yeah, he was in Brinsley Schwarz, but he wasn't in. I don't think he was in Love Sculpture. But Chris, you'll have to chime in if he's still on. McDonald and Giles, Tomorrow's People, The Children of Today, which is off of that McDonald and Giles album, which is what is that? The Chris says
Cheerful Insanity.
No, it's no. What is it? Body Movin' by the Beastie Boys. That's where the sample of that came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from that tune. Chris, you'll have to let us know. Brinsley Schwarz. Yeah. So Nick Lowe was in Brinsley Schwarz.
Okay.
I think Dave Edmunds was in Love Sculpture. Or yes or no. So let me know about that, Chris. Am I correct there? So and then of course Lucky Man, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, which is
woo, what a lucky man I is. It's a great episode.
That was a hilarious Simpson thing. It said Cheerful Insanity. Is that what?
Cheerful Cheerful Insanity. That's with whoa.
Hello.
So
don't hang up the phone. There you are.
Yeah, that's Giles and Fripp and
McDonald and Giles. Yep.
That guy. Yeah. Yep. That's a great. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I have it. It's a great album.
Okay.
I don't think that they took forever to press it on CD. Like I think it's only come out once on CD. So
it's quickly gone out of print, I'm sure.
Craig says he was listening to Nick Lowe yesterday. We could probably do a
Nice.
good conversation with him.
Jesus is cool, man.
Yeah.
Jesus is cool. That's a great record.
So yeah, and there's some, Edgar Broughton band is on here. A couple more from Love Sculpture. High Tide. You ever heard that? Sea Shanties by High Tide. You ever heard that album?
No.
That's an amazing album. You'd love it.
Okay.
There's some stuff on there from that. Curved Air is on here. Family. 10 Years After. Of course, The Move is on here. And Astral.
What Move song?
It's What by The Move, which I think is off of that's like their fourth album or so. Astral Traveler by Yes is on that. So there's another one of these, surprisingly, this came out maybe like 6 months ago. There's another one that's called Breakthrough that's from all the stuff from 1971 that comes out this week. But this is it's a 4 CD set. A lot longer jams on here. Like songs are like 9-10 minutes. So, but that's it.
Very cool.
Talk to me about the Velvet Underground.
Well, just real quick, these are the couple of records that I've been listening to them pretty often this week. Live at Max's Kansas City.
Okay.
And of course the
Lou Reed
best.
Rock and Roll Anthem.
You got it. So
and that's it. That's all. I'm just kidding.
So it was a good show, everybody. I know you and I have talked about the Velvet Underground, and I've just been I heard, gosh, what did I hear? Maybe was it Sweet Jane, something like that on Sirius Deep Tracks and off of Rock and Roll Animal. I was like, I need to pull that out. And dude, what a great live record that is.
Yeah,
it's it's kind of underwhelming to say, but it really is. It's just. I mean, it's everything I want in a rock and roll album. It's everything I want in a live rock and roll show. Lou Reed is just the antithesis, the nucleus of cool. It was never Jim Morrison for me. It was never Bob Dylan. Those guys are great, but Lou Reed was always like, he just checked all the boxes. It's just cool.
Well, I think Lou definitely gets. I think that he, the stuff from the Velvet Underground overshadows his sort of later solo career. Everybody always talks about Transformer, but usually they can't say anything about Transformer without saying David Bowie in the same, in sort of the same sentence. Transformer is a great album. I think it's fantastic. I think it's perfect for that time. Mm-hmm. And then of course Rock and Roll Animal is just the live version of it. And it's cool too. I don't know if you know, like more recently, I know they've released the whole thing. Like there used to be an album called, I think it was called Lou Reed Live, where he sort of has like a hat and then like the Elvis
with the big sunglasses.
Yeah, which I think is like the first set or the second part of that first set or something like that.
It's they're culminating from the same show, so
right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that one's good, but
yeah. Well,
yeah, hearing them all together would be fantastic.
Well, that's what they've done. They've reissued them that way.
Very cool. Okay.
And I think even back in this is probably early 2000s, they released. Do you remember the extended versions? Did you ever see those?
I've got an MC5 extended version. Okay. And it's just like random live tracks not from Kick Out the Jams or anything, but from like some of those less than authentic releases and things like that. Like it's pulled from that. So yeah, I've got a mountain extended versions. I've got like 3 or 4 of those. But yeah, because
there's the Iggy Pop one. Do you have that one?
I don't know. No, because those were always just so they were so cheap. They were like $3, $4, $5. So they were always so cheap just to pick up, and you have a handful of tunes by a band.
Yeah. There's a Lou Reed one, and that one I picked that up. Like I was just sort of obsessed with Lou and the Velvet Underground. So it was like one of those things where it was like, oh hey, what's this? Like it's weird to think about that too. Like we think about how music is now, where and it's really like any album that you want, you can either basically order it online and then have it within a week, or you can stream it instantly. You know what I mean? And you got it. So it's just strange to think of there was a time frame where it was like actually going record shopping and or you would go to Walmart and it was just like, okay, these are the CDs that Walmart had, and they had a Lou Reed
This is your
section, and it was
selection,
like,
yeah.
there was like two things in there, and and I remember when the Rolling Stones did their reissue campaign, I would go to Walmart and buy them, and they
Yeah,
had
yeah, you
like
and me
three
both.
little
Yeah,
things, that little things like that. But I did get the Lou Reed
yeah,
extended
yeah.
versions, and that at the time was like the reissue of that Lou Reed live album. So if you see that, you can basically have that and the what is it, Rock and Roll Animal, you can have that together, and that's the same thing. Or you can get one of the reissues that have the full thing. I'm pretty sure that was recorded too at the Academy of Music. So that was like in New York. That was before the Dead did Europe '72. Those were like they did like a 5 night run at the Academy of Music. So also, I think Rock of Ages was recorded there as well too, if I remember correctly. Could be the Fillmore, but I think it was the Academy of Music. So,
Look at you.
um, yeah, man, I just right off the top of the head. Craig says, looking forward to both of your thoughts on the recent VU doc, if you've seen it. I have not had time to watch it yet. I haven't just to
It
sit
makes two of
down,
us.
and I mean, I'm sure rather than coming on here and talking about the birds for 3 hours, that would probably have been better use of my time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I have not seen it yet. So
I haven't even watched the Get Back documentary. That's like one of that's just that's it's on my list. Like it's it's tough to break away.
yeah. So let's talk about, so how did you discover the Velvets? How was that? How did you come across them?
So it was early on in kind of record collecting. I think it was a friend of mine, David, who had like the first record with Nico, and I want to say that was my first exposure. But I think what led him to buy that was hearing in the Doors movie they play
Right. Yep.
what do they play?
I think heroin.
Do they play here? No. What do they? Gosh, what do they play in there? Do they play heroin?
I think it's heroin. I think so.
Anyway, whatever tune they play in there would let him to buy the record. I remember he was raving about it, saying, "Oh, you got to listen to this, you got to listen to this," and it was one of those things that I was immediately blown away by just the different kind of layers and textures of that album.
I'm listening to the Doors movie soundtrack. Here we go. Track listing.
I don't think it.
Heroin, Velvet Underground, and Nico.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that's it.
okay. For some reason, I thought it was
Craig,
um,
Craig said it's heroin.
Venus and Furs. Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah, it's
all
like,
right.
yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
it makes sense if it was Venus and Furs, but it wasn't. So
I thought it was, but hey, obviously I'm wrong. So, all right. But yeah, that's what kind of led me to discover them, and I want to say, I think shortly thereafter, he got White Light, White Heat, which again blew me away even more, especially the gift. I thought that was so creative and so just zany and out there. Exactly.
That was the same way. So it was through the Doors
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
It's like that Andy Warhol party scene, and it's like
Exactly.
you're just sort of like, oh my goodness, what's this music? And I know you and I have talked about sort of obsessing over the Doors when you're sort of that age, and they're like the perfect band to listen to when you're like 14, 15 years old, and be
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
I want to be Jim Morrison, I want to write poetry, and blah 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 blah, right? Um, and for me that was it. And I remember I went to the used CD store that
Hmm.
was in our town. We had two basically, record stores, CD stores, and then there was one that was the used store. And I always went to the used store because it was, you know, fiscally responsible, and
My man.
and yeah, I discovered them that way. So it wasn't one of those like VH1 sort of things, or like most of those other rock bands was. Um, Craig says got into Lou after seeing PBS American Masters doc in the late '90s. I'll have to look into that. I don't know
Okay.
what that is. Um, but I think like Walk on the Wild Side. It was always sort of like I knew that song. That was always sort of like in my orbit, but I wasn't really as far as the Velvets and Nico. I really wasn't familiar with that, and I think it's weird because it's like I feel like too that there's people that get into the Velvet Underground and they like get in with different albums, and I think whichever album you sort of first get into, that sort of changes your trajectory too, as far as with what you like. Um, but I think I feel that way. I feel like those, the self-titled and White Light, White Heat, like the folks that like really like those albums. Um, it's always sort of, to me, it's, I don't know, it's kind of strange because they're not the ones that like, the Velvet and Nico is it for me. Like, I mean, that's like,
Is it?
you can't top it. Like you can't. I mean, Loaded is really good, but like
See,
you can't recreate the feeling of being hungover and putting that record on and hearing Sunday morning on a Sunday morning after a Saturday night of taking it to the limit one more time. Eagles reference. If you ever heard of them.
Once or twice. I had a really rough night, man, and I hate the Eagles. um, you know, I tend to go the other way.
Okay.
Their self-titled album, with Pale Blue Eyes and Jesus and What Goes On, that's actually my favorite Velvet Underground record. There's just something. It's a haunting album, but it's a very comfortable album too, if that makes any sense. It's one of my favorite albums. This is going to sound so corny, but it's one of my favorite albums to listen to when like I can't sleep, or it's everybody in the house is asleep except for me, and I'll kind of put that record on. It's a very, very haunting but beautiful and kind of soothing record all at the same time. There's again, just like with everything that Velvet Underground did, there's so many different layers of art and conception throughout all those releases, and that one just really kind of gets to me at that kind of the same way that Closing Time, but of course Tom Waits does. And they're very good. They're records that I don't really think you can put on with a group of people. I think they're kind of a personal experience with that.
I agree.
But yeah, that's kind of where I go with them.
And it has that like that Velvet's like sort of like that pulsing rhythm, right? Like that album just sort of like,
well, that's Maureen Tucker. That's
right. But it just that whole album just sort of has that sense to it where it's just like you said, you just sort of, you just put it on and it's kind of like, it's a very intimate kind of experience for sure.
It is.
So it is. Yeah. So, but people that like that, like, I don't know, sometimes it's like people that's like, that's my favorite album. Like, I'm like, okay, it's just, okay. But again, everybody, the one thing that my manager taught me at the record store when I first worked there was never talk bad about anybody's records because it's somebody's favorite record. So you don't want to say like, that's a garbage album because it's somebody's favorite record.
Okay, Mark, I'm sorry about what I said about Delaney and Bonnie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You can learn something from that. So
maybe so.
Craig said fun story was in a school bus accident. Was on the bus my junior year. Song playing on my Discman. Run, run, run.
Probably sound advice after that.
That's great. I know you wanted to talk about some of the albums, so I just grabbed some of the things I had. Do you have the deluxe edition of that?
I do not. I don't have any of the deluxe. I've got the Peel Slowly and See, and I've got them individually.
$12. This one is not necessarily something that I feel is 100% needed.
Okay.
So it has the stereo version on it, and then it has the mono version on it, which, there's a little bit of difference to it, but not necessarily like, a resounding. And then they have 5 songs on here that they tacked on from Chelsea Girl with Nico, right?
Okay.
And then they had the singles. So All Tomorrow's Parties, I'll Be Your Mirror, Sunday Morning, Femme Fatale, which it's kind of like the same kind of thing. I mean, there's not really too much difference from the single mix from the album mix with those. So really they even have like the same running time. So kind of silly, but
seems like they could have a bunch of live stuff. Or am I getting ahead of you?
Not necessarily. No.
Really? Because it just seems like that's what you would get from that time period. I mean, there's tons of stuff that's out there, which is kind of, shaky quality, but there's tons of live stuff out there from that era.
So, and Craig, I know that, he's in the CD mode as well too. These deluxe editions, man, if I see them, I buy them. I think the only one I didn't buy was that Johnny Winter second winner one. But like if I see these, like they're so out of print and really desirable right now. So if you're at your local Craig and you see anything like these, pick these up. The legacy editions, we were talking about that
The,
legacy edition,
the Who,
yeah,
those my generation, and
I got them all. I got them all.
yeah, those are all essential. Those are all really, really great. They always, especially that first Who record, man. There's not a dud on that.
Um, the other one I wanted to talk about was so this is the album that I own the most copies of in my collection, CD, vinyl, and well, basically just CDs and vinyl. But this is the Velvet Underground fully loaded with the lenticular cover. That man, you break
Ooh.
this case, forget it. Might as well just throw it away. So this came out. This is '97, but it has so it's the fully loaded edition. It has the full length version of Sweet Jane and Rock and Roll. New Age is also the long version of that. Some of the bonus tracks they have Ride Into This the Sun demo, Ocean outtake, I'm Sticking With You outtake, I Love You demo, Rock and Roll alternate mix, Head Held High alternate mix, and then they have the alternate album on side two, which it's just again just alternate mixes, early editions. So this is really, I mean, if you see this, I know this is like way out of print. I paid like $13 for that back in 2008. Um, Definitely check this one out. So I got that version of that. I got it on vinyl. I have the truncated version of the shorter, not without the Heavenly Wine and Roses version of the Velvets on CD. This is from like '87, so even like the CD, like you can tell, like man, that's like an old looking CD. You know what I mean? So, and then I have the box set version, right? So
What a
Chris,
great box set that is, man.
yeah, this is so good. So
That's
and this and some of the other cuts on here, there's some of the live tracks from that one, and then of course Satellite of Love, before they did it on the solo album. So like between this and this, man, you get like that's like a huge amount of outtakes from that album. So um, definitely Loaded is one of my favorites from them too. So not as like influential as the Velvets and Nico, but that Loaded is really cool. I think that those versions are just completely tell a different story about that album. So what are your thoughts on Loaded?
that's a great record. It was the last Velvet Underground record that I got.
Okay.
I think I more or less got them in cover, or excuse me, got them in order. So that was definitely the last one I got. But for a long time I kind of championed that one is my favorite. But I was saying like the past 10, 12 years or so, I think it's pretty much stayed with the third record. So,
Okay.
but yeah, Loaded. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, what it's the thing about it is it's a shame that band, that was their last record. I understand that less is more in a lot of cases, and I think that's true with the Velvet Underground. But gosh, for that lineup, I mean, you really have got to look at Doug Yule. I mean, he really came in there and wrote a bunch of those songs with Lou Reed.
Yeah. What do you think of his sort of like um so he kind of he left them and he went to a band that was called American Flyer. Have you heard of this band before?
I have. When I was kind of just reading about them, that came up, and I kind of earmarked it that yeah, I've got to check them out.
Well, so there's sort of a weird connection between those guys. So you have of course Al Cooper, one of the patron saints of this channel. You had him doing his stuff with the Blues Project, and then like after the
Yeah.
Blues Project splintered, those guys kind of went and did different things. So American Flyer has, I want to say Andy Kohlberg, which I think he was the bass player. I want to say. Um, yeah, he was the bass player, I think. And of course, Steve Katz went on and played with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. But
Right.
they sort of like broke off, and there was like a band called C Train that was out for a little bit, and then like once C Train splintered, and I mean we're pretty much talking from like 1966 to like 1970 here. So yeah, so that's an interesting album, sort of like a roots Americana kind of album. It's not that good.
Okay.
But yeah, he played in that after that, and I think they released one other album too that was like sort of
Yeah.
like
They've
the
got two
Empire State
records.
Building with the it's like with the King
Oh,
Kong hand or whatever. Like,
yes. That record's terrible.
I've never heard that record, and that's just him,
Yeah.
right? That's just like him.
Yes.
Okay,
You know who plays drums on it?
who?
Ian Pace or what's this for Deep Purple?
Really?
Yeah. He plays drums on that record.
That's very. And was this like? So I'm trying to think. I don't. Again, you have to help me out with the Deep Purple lineup because I am not really.
No, he's been the only consistent member in there since they formed.
So like we're talking all the way back to like Shades of Deep Purple, like,
all the way up to whatever they put out last year, or year before last.
Was he like a hired gun, or was it like?
I don't know the history behind that record. I know that they had, after Loaded, I think they had 2 records to give them, and I know that's what kind of brought Max's Kansas City out, and I don't know if evidently that was the last record, which is silly.
So is this what is this? This isn't Max's Kansas City one, is it?
No, that is. No, that came later. That came out in 74, and I want to say it was recorded in
69.
69. Okay, so no, then that predates.
Okay.
That predates this, because this was recorded in 70, I think, and then came out in 72. So no, those yeah, because Maureen is not on this, but she's on that. This is the Yule brothers, Lou Reed and Sterling Martin, or Sterling
Morrison.
Not Sterling Morrison, yes. But Sterling Martin's a race car guy.
I just thought of that as soon as I took a drink of that.
Yeah, man, I played with them guys.
Before he got into the Winston Cup Championship, it was Sterling Martin was in the Velvet Underground.
Before I started drinking champagne in the winner's circle, I was shooting heroin in a dirty bathroom with Lou Reed.
No offense to Sterling Martin fans out there.
Not at all. I'm sure he's a great guy, and so is Lou Reed. All that stuff's allegedly. So, anyway, yeah. So no, those were released later, but they were recorded earlier. So, but the one thing that's about this is the songs. I don't know if it's the recording, but the songs are played. It's such a fast pace. It's very. I don't know if that's the youngest Yule brother on drums. Every fourth beat there seems to be some huge drum fill. It's kind of like, oh, this is one of my this is my one and only chance to kind of show off. So I mean, it really is. It really is, especially on I'm beginning to see the light, which is the best version of that song. So it is so good.
That's a great tune that I think that and that was on. Did that get on Lou's? That was on his first solo album, right?
Beginning to See the Light. No, that's off of the third record.
Okay. Oh, you're right. What is I forget what the one tune is that's on there. There's something on Lou's.
Well, you've got Waiting for the Man, Sweet Jane, Lonesome Cowboy Bill, Beginning to See the Light, I'll Be Your Mirror, Pale Blue Eyes, Sunday Morning New Age, Femme Fatale, and After Hours. Okay. So now I know there's a CD version that I think adds 2 or 3 tunes to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and I think that's kind of the cool thing is there's a lot of there's a lot of live Velvet stuff out there that just not necessarily are like, you kind of have to sort of be a fan of recordings that are just not. We don't say coat pocket, but they're like, like
they're not too far from
somebody had a mic that they knew about, and we're not talking soundboard recording quality. But that was I wanted to talk about this too and throw it down.
Okay.
Do you have this? You do, right?
I do not. I have recordings of it, but I don't have the official copy.
Okay. So you kind of have a couple. Most of this is sort of like early like November and December of 1969. Um, they either basically the Matrix in San Francisco or the Family Dog in San Francisco. Um, and you
Did
know
they ever play with the Dead?
yeah, they did. They played in Pittsburgh with the Dead for
No
that.
fooling.
Yeah, they did. It was the Fugs, Velvet Underground, and Grateful Dead, and that was like February of '69. That was right before they went to the Fillmore and recorded Live Dead. So, um, hold on a second here. We got some comments. I've been kind of not paying attention. Loaded was the first album I heard from a buddy freshman year, says Craig. Mark Neely. Hey, Mark. Good evening. Said Squeeze is not a bad standalone for Doug solo record, but with Velvet's name on it, it comes across terrible. Little Jack is a great song. Sounds like it could have been on Loaded. Squeeze. So that's the name of the album. We couldn't remember, and that's basically the King Kong squeezing the Empire State Building. So yeah, I mean and I feel like that album is it's not like I don't feel like the band basically even acknowledges those. Like the recordings are
Oh,
out there,
yeah,
but they're not like
yeah.
it's not like, hey, Velvet Underground reissue campaign, and we're gonna I don't think I've ever seen a copy of that on CD before, or if I did, I really wasn't like, oh, I gotta pick this up. But yeah, this though. This is a fantastic. I mean, the sound recordings are a little questionable. Again, kind of the
Yeah, but if
historic.
you like the Velvet Underground,
Oh
you're
yeah.
kind of, you
Well,
know what I mean. You're not used to the pristine sounding
yeah.
recordings and whatnot.
And a lot of these are like, um, like I can't stand it. I mean, what goes on. I mean, that's another one that's just like, I mean, it's an
It's a
eight-minute
jammer.
8-minute jam, right? Waiting for the Man is 7 minutes. It's just too much. Like I was listening to this earlier today, and it's just it's phenomenal. And you thought where they put Bootleg Series Volume One, like I was like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be so great if they. And of course, this was the only thing they released, but um, they did release. I think I did tell you this. They released the Matrix tapes, which is like sort of the second part, disc 2 and disc 3. They released that as like a 4 or 5 disc CD compilation. They also did it on vinyl, but
And if you're
it's
looking
like
for
$200 now.
good sounding, those are the shows that you want. If you just want, good sounding one, those Matrix. I mean, I think that's the best sounding live record that I think they've ever put out.
This is actually pretty cool, Steve. I don't know. You said you've heard this, but it's like it really is just like paper cardboard. Like it feels like it's like bootleg,
They
right?
weren't lying when they said it was bootleg.
Right, like it's like the that whole thing. But yeah, really, it's really cool. And of course, I got a few gems from our buddy Ernie B. Right, so um, here's the Boston Tea
Ooh,
Party,
look at that.
July 11th, 1969.
Now I think they played with the MC5 at that show. I know
Oh
they
really?
played with the MC. Yeah, I want to say it was that show that they played with the MC5.
Um, but you can just tell. I mean, I feel like some of those Boston Tea Party. You ever hear like you ever hear the Fleetwood Mac Boston Tea Party? Have you ever heard
Yes.
that? Like that's a great set. That's an amazing set. I feel like there was some really that was definitely a um, famous line from the from the Spinal Tap movie. Boston's not really a rock and roll town, right? That whole thing, right? So yeah, that's a great set. I also got this is another one I got from Ernie, the Velvet Underground. This is Andy Warhol's Factory Broadcast, New York,
Ooh.
1966. This is Coat Pocket. This is not, you know, not the best thing that you'd want to hear. You know what I mean? Like just historical value, and that's it.
Sure.
Um,
We're spoiled as Dead fans, man.
I know,
With
right? Yeah, yeah.
you really, really got to appreciate that.
And then I have this one, which is the
What is that?
BB Records. Um, it's from let's see, end of Cole Avenue, Dallas, Texas, October 28th, 1969. So around that same time frame. So really, it's like this is before this, which is cool. Like it just a couple of probably the same tour, because I think some of these shows, yeah, they were in San Francisco. November 8th of 69. So basically a week later, they were in San Francisco for
Very
this.
cool.
Um, it's really strange because Lou Reed talks about football on here, like talking about watching the Cowboys game, and which is
Is he
very
saying it
strange.
in jest, or is he?
Like it was just sort of like how, like, I think it's the Cowboys. I'll have to listen to it again. I'll let you know. But it's sort of like, hey, how is the football? We were watching the blah 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 today. Like, yeah, very strange. It's a very strange recording. Again, coat pocket kind of thing. A little bit better than coat pocket. So like
Well,
maybe
hey, if you've got Lou Reed talking about Roger Staubach, then I'm all for that. I'd love to hear that.
yeah. So it's an interesting little curio that I picked up, and it's on like this sort of plum colored vinyl.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, and totally just blank.
That is the bootleg of bootlegs, kind sir. We
Yeah.
need to do a bootleg show. That's what we need to do. We need to show up bootlegs.
Um, yeah, for sure. And I think that's again, it's one of those things that's like, it's so cool to hear it. Like it's cool
Yeah.
to hear to hear their tunes and things like that. I've one more little gem that is just something other than sort of what we've talked about. This is the Scepter Studio Sessions. Are you
Ooh.
familiar with this?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So this is like an acetate um, that was out there. It was pretty cool. This was sort of like one of the first, I think, WFMU, like the radio station. Are you familiar with them?
Mhm.
They
Yes.
they have their like weird music stuff or whatever that they play. They used to have a pretty good website. It's probably they still. That's how I found out about Attila. They talked about Attila on there.
Okay.
But they would put little tracks on there, and that was the one that was like, since it was like nobody owned the rights to it, like they could just say like, here it is, right? And I think that was like, that was in the trash, like somebody retrieved that out of the trash or something like that. um
Wow. Okay.
yeah, I think it was also released too with like a green banana, because it was like the like before it got ripe kind of thing. So it's all that, the Velvet's early stuff. So yeah, so that's some cool stuff that I got from them. um
Very, very cool.
so any other thoughts about the Velvets?
We should do a deep dive eventually for them.
Yeah, I think
Not,
that I think that would be. I mean, it wouldn't be too hard because they were only together for maybe 4 years or so.
or at least
Um,
focus on like maybe a period of the band, if not
yeah,
the entire run.
like here, we can talk maybe singles and things like that. Let me take a peek at this. Um, mm, mm, mm. Let's see.
You just ordered that Lou Reed. You just ordered a Lou Reed box set.
I
Did you
did.
get that one?
Yep.
What do you think of Coney Island Baby? Because
I've always
that's
had
one that
that.
I really like.
I've always liked
Yeah.
that. I
Are you a
mean,
fan of it?
there was like I want to play football for the coach. Like that was pretty fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a strange record, but it's like Lou Reed pretending he's Tom Waits is what I feel about that one. So,
Well, I think he pulls it off. So I like
yeah, yeah, he does.
I like it pretty well. And then there's Growing Up in Public. Are you familiar with that record?
Yep. Yeah.
That's another record that I like a lot too. I think kind of gets forgotten about in some circles, but those are two, I guess, latter career.
Hmm.
That I guess not latter career, but so maybe not more obscure, but just not too popular releases that I think are great.
Yeah.
So
just for perspective purposes here, so May of 69. I'm sorry, let's go back a little bit further here. So April of 69, that's when the third album comes out. March 69, April 69. May of 69, they release Jesus with What Goes On. Um, and of course, it goes nowhere. And then that's when Billy Yule joins the band.
That's his
And
name.
yeah, Billy. And then in 71 they do Who Loves the Sun, Oh Sweet Nothing. Loaded comes out. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. January of 71 is when Who Loves the Sun, Oh Sweet Nothing comes out. Loaded comes out April of 71. Um, or it could be August of 70. I think some of these are UK, and I didn't look and see what it was. I would assume it's August of 70 was when Loaded came out, and then April of 71 is when it came out in the UK. And then they released Who Loves the Sun and Sweet Jane, and that was it. February of 73 is when Squeeze came out, so that
Boy,
was
they were really
gone.
pushing Who Loves the Sun.
Yeah. Um, and that's it. And then of course you had the reunion in like '93. Did you ever hear that album at all?
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's strange to think of like that's what they were doing in '93. That like finally enough people were talking about them to say like, because we know that the influence with like REM is there, and
Certainly with Sonic Youth.
right, exactly, yeah. That they're like, hey, come check this out. But um, so Max's Kansas City is live August of 70. So that's kind of like after this stuff. Um, that's cool.
I think that was some of their final shows, if I'm not mistaken. I think they just may have done just a handful after that.
Well, it makes sense because if you look at sort of when they kind of um, August of 70 now with no original. Yules brought newcomers Walter Powers. Uh, basically, so Lou Reed goes solo 71. Willie Alexander, and then Morrison's doing a doctorate in English. Mo Tucker departed to raise a family, and that was it. So, um, yeah, man, there's some good stuff in there. And of course, John Cale. I mean, he went on and did. He did some.
Paris 1919. What an amazing record that is.
Yeah, there's some good stuff that he put out, and I would say that I think definitely at the beginning of his solo career, um, I would say that he was a little more popular than Lou, and then like Lou after Transformer just sort of like, you know what I mean? Like we know that his first album on wasn't that popular, right? It's
Well, I
it
mean, it's just the Velvet Underground, songs that he's redone. Well, not redone, but those were all outtakes from Loaded, weren't they?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean that was or like working songs that they just sort of were like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like he just took them with him. So, just real quick with some of the things in the chat. John says, "Hey Mark and Steven, I'm at
What's
work
up?
in my office grading and listening to you guys. Well, I think you should fail some people. Just fail them. Just fail them. Just give them like." And just put like I'm disappointed in you. Just write that at the top of the paper. Um,
Grade it correctly, and if they get a good grade, just put I'm very like really
very
throw them off.
disappointed. You missed
Yeah,
one
yeah.
and very disappointed. You're not perfect. Um, Craig says, "Let's talk metal machine music." That's great. We're still waiting. We're still waiting on the extended box set of that for Record Store Day.
Yeah.
And he said, "Fear is one of my favorite Kale albums. Even like Hanoi Soy is good. Like he's some really good albums out there that are just kind of like strange things that are just good.
That Paris 1919. That is one album that for years I've wanted that on vinyl, and it's just I've never seen it. And there you go. I'm sure pulling it out.
No, 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 no. I wanted to look and see. I think I just have. I only have a couple of his things, and I kind of I don't know. They're just, and again, they're just. It's one that you just don't see. Like you just don't see his stuff, and I mean,
Yeah, who's another artist from a band like that you really like their solo albums? Now I know that makes kind of sound kind of like a broad question, but John Entwistle, "Smash Your Head Against the Wall." Are you familiar with that?
yeah. And then
I love that album.
Whistle
I
Rhymes, I
absolutely
have that
love.
one. That's a pretty good one.
Just those are just really great. I think that probably George Harrison, "All Things Must Pass," is probably the shining example of that. But some of those more obscure ones I think are really a lot of fun.
Yeah. Um, what else? I feel
How
like
about the Tom Fogerty solo album?
yeah, not that good. It's good. It has Vintage Violence. That's the one I have. I have that one.
Yeah, that's his
Yeah,
first one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's good.
That's a good record.
Is Paris 1919? Is that the one he has like the hockey mask on? Is that
No,
one?
no, that's the one where he's got like the cream colored suit and he's going like this.
Okay.
It's got like a child's dream of Christmas in Wales and um, several other good ones. I mean, that just from start to finish. That's a great record.
Yeah. Um, John says done. Everyone fails.
Look at you, Mister Bad Influence over there. Terrible, man.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
um, final thoughts on the Velvets. Craig, Mark, thanks for your input. Um, it's kind of great to talk about them. I feel like
Yeah.
they're
I
definitely.
think it brings us all together, you know. Yeah, it
But
seems like people who are into records, you know, it really seems like that's one of those bands that everybody champions, and rightfully so.
and I think I'd mentioned a comment to you, and I won't preface it. The hockey mask is guts, which is a comp I
Okay,
believe says
okay,
says Craig. I talked to you about the record store mind, right? So like,
hmm
um, I feel like that is very influential on my purchases and things like that. I'm willing to explore music. I think that um, music is an escape, and while it's great to listen to stuff that's good music and pop music, and sort of the lowest common denominator sort of things, right? Um, Music is sort of meant to be something that you're always reaching for. And I think that's one of the downfalls of the hobby is that there's no end. You know, we talk about there's no end game to when you're collecting records. When do you say now it's time for me to stop, right? We can't. It'll never happen, right?
You're never gonna have everything. But that's also the beauty in it too, right? Is that in one sense, if you're talking from a monetary standpoint, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can lose your shirt and completely go broke doing this. But if you're in it strictly for, you know, the music and the enlightenment, I think there's enough different avenues of all these bands like we just talked about, like, you know, John Entwistle of the Who kind of puts his solo record, John Cale, like all these Tom Fogerty is another one we brought up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, whether they're good or not is a completely different conversation. But my point is there's all these different avenues that you can kind of explore, and usually those guys are doing different kind of music, and it really kind of open your mind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing I really like about it. Again, like we said earlier, you know, the monetary aspect of it is it's an impossible goal unless you just have, you know, a complete and utterly disposable income to where you can do this stuff. But then you've also got some practical stuff with storage and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think that's the both the blessing and the curse with the whole entire enchilada.
But the cool thing though, and to bring it back to the Velvets, they are one band that there's not a lot of stuff out there, right? I mean, you know, you think about where's the box set at? Right here, right? Like in one fail swoop, you can pretty much get everything. Like there's really nothing that, and I would say this is essential. I think this is important. Maybe that Max's Kansas City. I mean, those are live albums that were blessed by the band.
Mm,
So in my opinion, those are going to be ones that are going to be. Uh, it's not going to get any better than this, right? There's no Cornell show that's in the vaults that people are like, oh my goodness, there's this amazing show that like they would have done it, right? They never
yeah,
really had a proper live album other than those albums, and that was sort of, and kind of like what we talked about, like that was sort of at the point where those albums were kind of in vogue, right? Where's your double live greatest hits live, right? Um,
yeah.
and that was theirs, right? Um, so I think the Velvets are a great band that you can really get everything for not a lot of money, and there's not a lot of like chasing with them. There's not a lot of like I think a great example is Aerosmith put out that record for Record Store Day that was like early stuff.
Yeah,
and,
from
and
like
it
71 or something like
and
that.
it piqued my curiosity. Like
You and me both, yeah.
I was kind of like, I'm not necessarily somebody who's going to be, marching up to the record store and be like, I'm going to buy an Aerosmith record today. But that was enough that was one that I was like, I'm interested in that. That's one that like, I want to check out. And the Velvets just don't have that, right? They don't have, Sundays did the singles. They did the single box set where, hey, here's all the singles that they released. And then they did one for Record Store Day, which was like the
It was
last
like
one. Yeah.
like 69, like 1969 or something like that. And that was basically like the majority of that was all those outtakes from the Loaded session, wasn't
Right.
it?
Exactly.
That they can kind of put in another record or whatnot.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
why the label didn't do that, I guess they did that eventually in 85, but why they didn't do that with something like that and they released, which listen, I like Max's, the Live at Max's Kansas City. I like that record for what it is, but it just seems odd that if you have the studio stuff, that would be what you would go with in order to, of course, I don't know the ins and outs of the contraction, the contracts and all that, but that just seems to me like what you would go with. But hey, I'm glad we got both.
Yeah, and I think there's just the other thing is I just don't think there's a lot left, right? I don't think that they're not one that has oodles and oodles and oodles of things here. So, quick couple comments here. Chris said, "Listen to Loaded first, but White Light, White Heat is my favorite, though the third is their best." Craig said, "Had to check my copy to make sure that." Haha, thanks, Chris. Only way to go insane with Velvet's vinyl is if you're going crazy about what pressing to get. Yeah, I mean that's true, right? So, is there a peeled banana, or is it half peeled, or is it whatever? Does it have is it the second edition that has? I'm not even sure which one my copy is. I think it's like.
Oh, I've got an 80s pressing of it.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, it's from like 84. So
yeah, I mean, and I have an original. I got an original, and it was probably
wow.
Yeah, it's one of the few that I've ever seen. Which is really funny because at the time of when I got it, so the Andy Warhol Museum is in Pittsburgh. So Steve, when you come and visit, we can go do that up.
Absolutely.
And they obviously have a little, they have a little 4-foot sort of thing devoted to the Velvet Underground there in their permanent collection, and they have a copy of the album in there. And at the time, that besides that one and the one that I bought was like the only one that that I'd ever seen. And Mike Siemens, so he is his mother was Mrs. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
No kidding.
Was filmed in Pittsburgh. Mike Siemens is also the guy I got all those Al Cooper records off of. He bought Al Cooper's collection. So he had a record store in Pittsburgh for a little bit. And when he would go on these, like, he was going to go buy a bunch of records, he would put out like really good records in the store because it was like, when he came back, he was going to be broke unless whatever sold in the store. And he had this little, this little box that was like like maybe a 12-inch box of expensive SHIT. It was what it said on the label. And he and right in the front was like, I think I probably paid $35 for it. I probably still have the sticker on it, but that was.
Is the banana peeled?
I can check. Let me see. Let me roll back and I'll check.
This is live, ladies and gentlemen.
Live. I should have pulled it out, but I didn't. Good thing it has a big thing on the side. It is a 98% peeled cover.
Very cool.
And then it has the big sticker on the back because they blurred the guy out. So I believe this is like a first pressing, second state or whatever.
But here's the thing: you said you paid $35 for that, and you're like, "That's an expensive record back then." Like,
this was the most expensive record that I had ever purchased.
That's cool, man. That's cool. And even
until as of like 2000,
until the Dead started releasing those, 18 disc box sets.
Yeah. This was probably in 2010 is when I bought this, I would say. So
Wow.
2010, 2011. But yeah, it was the only copy I'd ever seen. So, and then of course, it's a cheap reissue. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you can probably get a copy for less than $20, and again, it's a great, it's a great album just to listen to. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
the only the Nico, I've got that like an '80s pressing. Like I said, the other ones are all reissues except for Loaded. I've got a first pressing of Loaded, but
okay,
all the other ones are all reissues. They're just like you said. They're. Do you want to pay $12 to $15 for a reissue, or do you want to take a second mortgage out to get the first couple of records?
well, and
So
that's one of the lucky things I got to do when, when records were. I mean, at the time that was an expensive record, but that stuff was kind of obtainable, and it's kind of nice that I sort of put that money to to get that record. So yeah, one of the crown jewels in the collection for sure. But yeah, there's a different mix for the third album, the Closet mix. That's right.
mhm,
So and I think that's on the box set. They have the
it
Closet mix
is.
compared to the
Yes.
vinyl. What's the difference? I can't. Is it more reverb? I think is that what it is, or it's like
That's what I got. I don't think there's a drastic,
okay,
at least to my ears anyway. I don't think there's a drastic difference. I almost prefer the Closet mix. I think, but again, there's not that big a difference,
yeah,
at least to my ears. So
yeah. So yeah. I think we've said all that we can say about them. Is there anything that I'm missing? I'm trying to think here.
I don't think so. I think we kind of,
Yeah,
for on the fly, kind of
yeah.
covered some pretty good ground.
But I think my final thought would be that I think anybody that I've ever turned on to the Velvet Underground, they've sort of they fit that, Steve, where we decided sort of what when we talk about what's perfect music, right?
Mhm.
It has that gritty aspect to it where it's not exactly perfect and it's a little dark, right? So it's sort of like it sort of fits that mold, and I think that there's that quote that says that everybody that bought the Velvet Underground album started a band, and
Right.
yeah, like I think it's cool because it's like outsider culture and things like that. So that whole world that they were in, um, I don't know if Andy Warhol, I don't really know
Well,
what his input really is on there other than the producer
I
or
guess he financed them.
like
That was really the only
right, like
thing.
exactly the financial
Yeah.
backer to them. But yeah, it's weird to think that that Loaded was released on Cotillion, so that's like what that was like a subsidiary of Atlantic, so that wasn't even like you know what I mean. Like you had I can't really think of many other than the Mylan album on Cotillion.
Yeah.
I guess Emerson, Lake and Palmer were on
Well,
Cotillion,
yeah,
and
that's
so
true.
was
That's
King
true.
Crimson
Yeah.
on. Were they on Atlantic
No,
or they? Okay,
they were Atlantic. Yeah.
they were Atlantic. Okay.
Um. The other thing about the Velvet Underground, they're just genuine.
Hmm.
They're genuine. You get that real sense that this is a band. This is a working band. They're genuine. That's probably the best way I can describe them. Is they seem authentic.
Yeah.
Like when Lou Reed's talking about shooting heroin, like I believe every bit of that.
Right.
You know,
Well, and
whether he's lying or not, who knows? I'm just saying that it's just he just does it so well.
and I mean, you think about the lines to "Waiting for Your Man," "Waiting for My Man," right?
Yeah.
Some of us have been there before, right? We understand how that works. That's again another reason why that album is so it is what it is. McDonald and Giles was on Cotillion. That's right. That was one of the other ones that was on there. So yeah, it definitely wasn't definitely wasn't the one where Atlantic was putting all their money. But funny you say that. Another album that's one of those albums that I'm like, this is one of those songs.
What's that?
Gotta get up by Harry Nilsson, right? Have you lived that
Okay.
song before?
Okay.
Have you ever woke
Will not
up and
confirm nor.
yeah, all right.
Oh,
I will
speaking of
tell.
which,
I will tell. My goodness, look at the time. I will tell no tales. Yeah. So that's kind of the funny stuff about that. So, all right. Well, it's 10 o'clock. It's time for
yeah,
bed.
it's past bedtime, sir.
Yeah. So pleasure as always, Chris, Mark, John, Craig. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time. So take care.
Bye. Sports truly.
Sports truly.